Hello YouTube. Got some here that I want to share with you, and I think this is important. I picked up on something. I've got this theory of mine, but I wanted to share it with you all, so you can kind of make the connection that I'm connecting. So as you can see here, we've got this title here. Before Mike Pence, Hillary Clinton had her own fly debate moment. So I'm going to play this video here from New York Post, and to kind of set the stage here to see what we got going on. So I'm pretty sure everybody remembers when that fly landed on Pence. Let's not talk over it. So everybody remembers the most recent iteration of this event, when this fly landed on Mike Pence's head when he was debating Kamala Harris. But this also happened with Hillary Clinton back in 2016, as you can see here. I'm going to keep rolling. When she was debating Donald Trump. Oh, come on. It was very brief. Trump also had one too. But also Michael Bloomberg.
Every major, that's a nasty fly.
Oh yeah.
I don't like those suckers.
Yeah, just wait. Okay, so if you see my tabs up here, you can see Barack Obama also had that.
Sorry, I'm gonna
had this problem too.
Get out of here.
That's the most persistent fly I've ever seen. Nice.
Yeah, so
Now, where were we?
he swats the fly, all
was
that
very
fun
impressive.
stuff. They close in on it. We also have this one here.
There was no Bronze Age without fire. No Bronze Age without fire. Bronze Age without fire. No Iron Age without fire. No Industrial Revolution.
Well, anyhow, you can't really see it all that well.
Science and
I
technology.
guess this is during their wedding, but she also had an instance where a fly came up and smacked her in the face. Now, I've been wondering to myself, this is a very odd set of coincidences of like all these politicians. Now, I mean, everybody, sitting around campfire, maybe at your home, stuff like that. Yeah, you get some flies. You might get some flies. Rarely do I ever have them actually land on my head. But I started wondering, it's like, why are all these flies landing on these politicians' head when they're out doing like debate or doing some kind of presentation on a podium? And then this hit me. So this gal here is Randy K Ministries. So this gal here is, this is where I got this revelation. So I'm just going to play this, where we're at here, and I'll put this video in the description. Very, very interesting testimony she's got here. But where she's at here, she has just been separated from her body. Her spirit is actually, she's not dead yet in this one, but when she's experienced this, but she's basically having like a near-death / out-of-body experience. So I'm going to play this one. This is key.
Ever coming out of their bodies, that it just happened so quick. So I'm laying on the bed, and the next thing I do, I sit up. And when I sit up, the world was just so colorful. And even though I was still in my bedroom, I could see my brother on the floor. And for some reason, and this is the oddest thing, he hates talking about. He doesn't even talk about it. And that's why, it took me even 10 years to open up and to talk about it in public, because it was just a really, really dark day. So I'm in the spirit realm and I sit up. And my brother is screaming on the floor, help us, forgive us, and he's just like praying and crying out to the Lord. And later on, I found out that my brother said that everything that I went through, which I'm about to say, he said everything that I went through, he felt. So he couldn't see anything, but he said the darkness, he felt it and it overtook him. And that's when he fell on the floor and crying out like, Father, forgive us, help us. And he didn't even know, but he was actually interceding as well at that time. So nevertheless, I am in this world, in the real world, because this one is not even real, but I am in the real world. And I sit up on the bed.
That's something that you'll commonly hear amongst, you know, people who have these out of body experiences and then, you know, but don't actually die, is that they'll all tell you that the spirit world feels far more real than this one. And a lot of that is due, well, I mean, not a lot, but it is due to when your spirit is out, it is no longer clamped. The senses of the spirit are vastly superior than the senses of the body. But when the spirit is in the body, it is mostly clamped, and the sensories are tamped down, and they can really only experience the limited amount that the body can provide it. So we're gonna keep going.
And I look back and I see my body, and it's like a lifeless shell. My face is just, you know, like this. My hands still, everything still, and I'm literally looking back above my body. And when I turned back from looking at my body, this music started playing. It was already playing, but it's like everything happened fast but extremely slow at the same time. So as I'm looking at my body, looking at my brother on the floor, this demonic music starts playing, and it's like the most like just the keys dun, 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 and just it's unbelievable. Like I can't mimic it even if I tried. And my bedroom got so dark, and it was just so much darkness surrounding me. And as I'm looking at my bedroom door, my ceiling started being filled with flies, and they were just millions of them, millions of flies. And so as I, you know, look at my body, look at my brother, and I'm
Millions of flies.
looking at all these flies, and this music is playing. These flies get together and they started forming the most demonic thing that I've ever seen. And when they get done forming,
Just had to cut that in there. That was from the movie Constantine, and I would actually recommend that a lot. It's a really good movie. The writers and directors of that were not. They seem very well educated.
him, he pops out of this tornado of flies, and he has his hands on the bed, and he's like ready to take me. And come to find out, the Lord told me that his name was Beelzebub. And so I
Beelzebub. That's why I called this the Prince of the Power of America. If you remember when I forgot who it was, one of the apostles prayed and took 21 days for the angel to arrive and said, sorry, I was being held up by the Prince of Persia. Now they never, and Michael had to show up to get to help that angel deal with the Prince of Persia, which is really interesting because you would think that these angels could just kind of pop in and out of Earth from wherever, but apparently he had to go through something like a portal or some type of entry point into Persia from Persia, and then traverse to the destination where the apostle was. I'm sure somebody can correct me on that one, or key it in. I'm not very good with like keeping track of who experienced what in a lot of these things, but so I'm getting the impression that somebody, Mr. Beelzebub here, was making an appearance on these with these politicians, and for whatever the reason the involvement is in it, it wouldn't surprise me if like Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, maybe even Mike Bloomberg wouldn't would have cut some kind of deal with these fallen entities, these derelict angels. I'm not, and I don't think Trump was, but if you take a look at Trump's presidency, he had a lot of really bad people whispering into his ear, and he took their advice to heart. Unfortunately, that's why you saw a lot of really bad personnel picks, things like that, because he was listening to all the wrong people. And hopefully, when this next term comes around, hopefully he will learn from that. I'm not necessarily seeing the greatest of indication, but his last presidency was completely mired down with a lot of really bad influence from his orbit. But we're gonna go on a little bit farther with this one.
All of these flies formed him. His face was purple and green and red, and it was just so disgusting. Long horns, long fingers, and he even had like the body like of a snake / man. It was just, I can't even explain.
One thing I'd like to point out is that one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of the hell demons, the denizens of hell, that when they do come into manifestation, or when people have these experiences where they encounter some of these demons from hell, they're always reptilian. Not totally always, I shouldn't say always, but there seems to be a large number of reptilian based demons that reside in hell. And if anybody watches, follows David Icke's stuff, where he talks about like these reptilian entities, it kind of starts painting a much more interesting picture when you kind of start making these connections. So gonna keep going on with hers.
Explain how he looks, but it was just so dark. But to see the hate in this demon's eyes, you just can't. So as soon as I saw him and he put his hands on the bed, I don't know what made me do this. I'm sure it was the Lord, but I shouted to the top of my lungs, it's like, I don't know. That's just the first thing, that I thought to do. I'm like, there is no way. What in the world is going on? I'm dead. My body is back here like a shell. My brother is crying. I'm looking down on him and seeing him crying and praying to the Lord, asking for forgiveness. This demon is coming for me. No, I got to call on somebody, and I couldn't call my mama, so I had to call Jesus. And when I called that name, he showed up in glory, in majesty, in splendor, and he had on a white robe, and he had brown hair that stopped about right here, and his eyes were like fire. And he looked at me and just stared right into my eyes, and I was just like, you're real. You're so real. And the love and the compassion that he had for me and that he showed me, it's just something I'd never seen in anybody. Even my mother on a good day, you can't compare his love to anyone, to anybody. And he looked at me. And when he looked at me with these burning fire eyes, it's like staring into the sun. It's like the sun times a million, staring into his eyes. He looked through my soul. And it's like almost like I could see myself being formed as a baby and him putting me in my mother's womb and him, God saying, let there be light and everything forming in galaxies. It's like I could see everything when I stared into his eyes. And when I did this, the Lord said, Takyah, it is time for you to go, for you are not doing the will of my Father who is in heaven. And his voice was just echoing and sounding like he was speaking from a mountaintop, even though he was right there with me. And I was like, no, no, well, I'll do your will. What's your will? What do you want me to do? So yeah, I started like, no, what is your will? And as he's saying this demon, Beelzebub, is just like looking just back and forward, like listening to our conversation and trying to figure out, what was going to happen to me. So once I say, hey, wait a minute, I'll do your will, like, I'll do it. The Lord reached out his hand and he touched me. And when he touched me, I shrieked back and I said, like, why are you touching me? And the reason I did this was because I was living a life of sin. I was dating this girl. I was, drinking, smoking weed, taking pills, alcohol, just all of that stuff, having premarital sex, and all of these things. Music had become my idol, just so many dark things, and I didn't care nothing about God. So when he touched me, I could feel my sins and my filthiness against his holiness and his righteousness. And it just, it was too much. It was like he was too holy for me. Like, it's just too holy for me. Wow. And I couldn't take it. The love and the holiness that was within that touch. And he smiled when he touched me. I'm over here panicking and shrieking and like, why did you touch me? Because I filled with demons, loaded in darkness, and I could feel my sins against his purity and his holiness, and I felt filthy. And so after this, he touched me, and he looks at me, and he says, will you tell them everything? Will you tell them what you saw? And I said, yes. And I'm looking at this demon and I'm looking back at Jesus. And I'm like, yes, I'll tell them everything. I'll tell them everything that I saw. And I was thinking to myself, just don't let me go with this demon. I'll tell them whatever you want me to tell them. And he just kind of had his stern look and he shook his head and he smiled a little bit, but his face was stern. And when he did this and shook his head in agreement, the demon that was watching this whole entire thing, this ordeal, he said, no, like she belonged to us. And it was just the craziest, eeriest voice ever. And he went to shouting and being angry and saying, these are not the rules. And like, it was just like screaming from the depths of his spirit. He was so angry that Jesus had broke the rules for me.
Wow.
And yeah.
Okay. I ran that as long as I did. Because there was a second point that I wanted to make. There is about Beelzebub pitching a fit because supposedly Jesus had broken the rules for this. That, as he said, that is not the rules. Something that I've been contemplating on, and because I've come to understand that there is some kind of set of rules that are set forth. These are not listed in the Bible or anywhere else. I don't think there's any record of them here on earth that you're going to find. But there has been rules set forth, rules with like interactions within the spirit world that we are in some way, shape, or form that affects us. And unfortunately, we don't have that rule book. Obviously, I can't pull these rules up on the internet. It's not like I can go into like the Library of Congress or something like that and I can pull up laws that they pass. So there's laws that are going on here, and I don't know if Jesus necessarily broke the rules because he is sovereign. or maybe Beelzebub was so focused on like a specific set of rules. There's other rules that he didn't think about or didn't remember or something like that. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop this here because I'd like to go into more of like who is Beelzebub. And so yeah, this is a good one. Demon attacks Constantine. Again, I think anybody who's kind of like involved in spirit, or at least curious about spiritual warfare and stuff like that, this movie has a lot of interesting tidbits in it that I found to be more accurate, I should say, or insightful. We'll say insightful. So I wanted to see, we're going to pull this up here. Okay, so what I have here is, this is called Dictionnaire Infernal. This was printed by a French demonologist. You'll have to look up how long ago it was, but he basically catalogs all the known like major demons, or in some cases, I suppose you say the princes, and how these illustrations came about, it's anybody's guess, but you can find Beelzebub is in here. Here he is. So here we have Beelzebub, at least this illustration of him. Next to, who is that? Dareth. Anyhow, I guess this is the artist here. But yeah, so we have Beelzebub here, Lord of the Flies. This is how he's depicted here. And I believe, scroll down, there's all the imagery. This is free, available online. It's not a very high resolution scan, but see, I do apologize. It is a very, it's a low resolution PDF. So, but I'm going to go ahead and read this. Beelzebub, Beelzebub. He, variety, as you can tell, names kind of like shift around a little bit through time. Prince of Demons, according to the scriptures, foremost in power and crime after Satan. According to Milton, supreme chief of the infernal empire, according to most demonographers. His name signifies Lord of the Flies. Bowden claims that he is no longer seen in his temple. He was most revered god of the Canaanites, who sometimes represented him with the figure of a fly, more often attributes of sovereign power. He rendered oracles, and King Ochizias consulted him over a troubling malady. He was severely reprimanded for this by Prophet Elijah. Which, yeah, that goes over that in the Bible. One attributed to him the power to deliver men from flies who ruin the harvest. Almost all the demonomaniacs regard him as the sovereign of the gloomy empire, and each depicts him colored by his own imagination. Milton gives him an imposing aspect, and high wisdom breathes on his face. One says he is high as a tower, another the size equal to our own. Some give him the form of a snake. In that form, he is also seen with feminine traits. The monarch of hell said Palangine in Zodiaco Vitae is of a prodigious size, seated on an immense throne surrounded by a ring of fire. He has a swollen chest, a bloated face, flashing eyes, raised eyebrows, and menacing hair. He has extremely large nostrils with 2 great horns on his head, and he is black like Moor. 2 vast bat-like wings are attached to his shoulders. He has 2 large duck feet, a lion's tail, and shaggy hair from head to his feet. So, and it, I'm pretty certain that demons can manifest in a variety of forms. I don't, especially these fallen angels. I don't think they're limited to just one, especially over the course of time. And I wager that they also show up and represent themselves as different images in different cultures. Some say greater than Beelzebub is Priapus. Others, like Porphyrius, confuse him with Bacchus. Some believe that they found him the Belog or Belarch, white god of the Slavs, because his bloody image was always covered with flies. Like the Beelzebub among the Syrians. One said also that he was the same as Pluto. It is more reasonable to believe that he is Baal, whom Wyrus made emperor of hell. All of the more since Beelzebub is not found by the name in his inventory of the infernal monarchy. One sees in Solomon's clavicules that Beelzebub appears sometimes in a monstrous form, like that of an enormous calf or goat with a long tail. Nonetheless, he is often shown with the face of an ugly fly. He appears to Faust dressed like a bee with 2 dreadful ears, and his hair painted in all colors with a dragon's tail. The Miracle of Retz saw him as a leopard when he was angry. One swears that he breathed fire and howled like a wolf. Finally, sometimes Astaroth appears at his side as the form of an ass. So there's a decent amount on him. But it's become apparent to me that he is, and from what I'm seeing, from what I'm gathering from this, is that he has at some point been appointed as the Prince of the Power of America, the Prince of America. And so he's also been attributed to gluttony as well, and the destroying of empires. I would also like to add that this lady here, she Miss Love, she is she was a musician, and one of the things she talks about is like the 27 Club, where a lot of musicians die at the age of 27 and stuff like that. And you'll have to go back and listen to the whole thing, but it's very apparent that Beelzebub is involved, seems to be heavily involved within the music and the media industry, and is becoming more and more overt with each passing year. When you see these music awards and stuff like that, where they have very, very apparent blasphemy up on the world stage, and pushing this pushing these images and music into houses, you know, because everybody watches it, so all this stuff goes into houses. Families end up listening to it and all this other jazz. So we can see how the influence is affecting and infecting our nation and culture. There's definitely a growing, but basically the whole thing is rearing its ugly head. So pay close attention when music and media and a lot of these movies, how they're continually marching towards degeneration. So what I have here, how we're going to close this one out, and it, you know, obviously, you know, America's just been and much of the West too has been being degraded over time. A lot of that coming from our policymakers and our government, our government officials. So, and I wager he's probably involved in the music industry as well. You know, especially for anybody who, we just had the Olympics over in France, and I'm guessing his influence, you know, since we're such a hugely connected, he's able to project his influence among many other Western countries and coordinating with other princes. But I went ahead and we're gonna close this off with a prayer. And what I would like to see, I'm going to copy and paste this into the description. And what I would like to see is us kicking his ass out of America. I firmly believe that if we can get a large enough prayer, enough Christians praying this prayer that I put together, and effectively petitioning the throne, petitioning the Lord to evict this guy out of America. It's very apparent that he's here. I could only presume that he has been appointed the Prince of America, and in part also the Prince of the West. So I've got this prayer here that I'm going to say it here, and then and there's going to be a link in the description. So let us begin. Father, thou art in heaven, Lord Jesus, Holy Spirit, hallowed be thy name. Ward this house and family from evil's reprisal. We petition you, O Lord, to dispatch the archangel, he who defeated Lucifer in the heavens, and over the body of Moses, he who laid low the prince of Persia. We petition you, O Lord. Dispatch Michael to defeat the prince of the power of America. To bind Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, in chains of darkness. To be imprisoned beneath the Euphrates, until such time as righteous judgment shall be cast unto him. Deliver America from this decrepit wicked spirit. Fill this nation with your holy righteousness, O Lord. May thy kingdom come. May thy will be done. Amen. Thanks for sticking with this. So I ask you, please share this video, and more importantly, share this prayer. Let's see how effective we can be with 7 million prayers said. Remember, if you're catching flack, you're over the target.